You love surprises, don't you?
My wife, Sarah, announced she was taking a trip to our vacation property with Derek like she was reading off a grocery list. No hesitation, no flicker of guilt, just, I'm heading down to the beach house with Derek this weekend. Derek wasn't some random coworker either. This was a guy I'd watched her practically undress with her eyes at 3 different neighborhood barbecues. He was married with 2 kids. I'd shaken his hand, bought ribs for his family cookouts, lost to him at cornhole like it was all friendly competition. I was sitting at my laptop when she dropped this announcement. The spreadsheet still glowed on the screen with quarterly revenue projections, fixed expenses, neat little numbers perfectly aligned, unlike my actual life. I set my coffee down without making a sound and told her flat out that if she went to our beach house with him, we were done. Finished, she scoffed, loud enough to fill the room. You don't mean that. It's just sun and sand, nothing serious. There it was. The line in the sand, and she was grinding it out with her heel. She didn't even look at me when she walked out, just grabbed the keys from the bowl like always, texted someone, probably Derek, and shut the door like it was any other Saturday. Here's what Sarah didn't know. I already had the full picture. I knew about Derek, knew about her escape plan, knew about the project she was supposedly working on with a team from Baltimore. The one she'd talked about exactly 0 times before, but suddenly required a full weekend trip with a married man. Not just any married man either, but one I'd bought drinks for and watched lose at yard games like we were actual friends. I didn't yell or chase or even blink, but I did close the laptop, and I did open the top drawer of the sideboard, the one she never used. Inside was a flash drive, a manila envelope, and a copy of a very old, very boring-looking deed. The kind of document most people would ignore completely. She had. I called nobody right away. I just opened the calendar app on her tablet, which she didn't bother logging out of. There it was, clear as day. Weekend getaway, South Shore. The same exact weekend she'd told me I should take time to myself, decompress, maybe go visit my brother. Instead, I did what any rational man would do when he sees a tornado warning and hears his wife say it's probably just a breeze. I packed a bag. Not much, just enough for 3 days and a perfectly timed reset of everything. Because if she was going to choose a side, I was going to make sure she knew exactly what side she landed on. The guest list was already forming in my head. Not formal invitations, but I had a few quiet conversations over the previous week. The kind that end with, just show up, bring the kids, I'll have the grill going. Derek's wife Jennifer was one of them. His kids too. The same ones he used to post about during Family Fridays on social media. Even his in-laws, the ones who'd bought them their first car and helped cover daycare expenses for 2 years. Yeah, them too. I knew the ocean wouldn't be the loudest thing that weekend. Not even close. Sarah thought the betrayal was quiet, that it could be hidden behind beach selfies and cryptic captions, but secrets rot when you put them somewhere warm, like a sunny porch or a beachfront deck. And she walked straight into it, confident and smiling, wearing the sundress I'd bought her last year with our joint credit card. She crossed the line. I just made sure there were witnesses. Getting access to her planning was embarrassingly easy. She'd left her laptop open while printing some retreat documents in the home office. The calendar notification popped up, flashed for half a second. That's all I needed. South Shore Beach, Friday through Sunday. I didn't even need her password at first, but curiosity got the better of me. She used the same password for everything. Our daughter's birth year and the name of her old cat. I guessed it right on the first try. There was a shared album with Derek full of ideas for the trip. A playlist titled something innocuous. A grocery list that included charcoal, lemons, herb goat cheese, and buried at the bottom rubbers. Real subtle, Derek. So I added a few names to the mix. Not in their digital album, of course. In the real world, I made actual phone calls. One to Jennifer, Derek's wife, who picked up on the second ring and listened for 7 straight minutes without saying a word. When I finished laying everything out, she said, "Well, we always wondered. We'll be there." Then I called his parents. His mother said almost the exact same thing, that they'd sensed something was off. They committed immediately. I also contacted the property manager, asked her to make sure everything was stocked for guests, that family would be arriving Friday afternoon for a special dinner. She loves me. She's the one who helped us find the place 15 years ago when it was falling apart and smelled like old fish. She even called me sweetheart when I offered to double her standard weekend rate. She had the sheets cleaned, the grill scrubbed, and this part was critical. The guest logbook dusted and left open on the kitchen counter where anyone could see all the names of previous visitors. I added one more detail, something small but significant. I replaced the framed photo in the hallway, the one from our wedding day, and swapped it with a print of our prenup signature page. Zoomed in just enough to highlight the section about infidelity resulting in property reassignment clause triggered upon guest occupancy breach. Sarah never read the fine print. Nobody ever does, but she would. Oh, she definitely would. Back at the beach, Sarah probably poured another glass of that wine and turned her phone screen down, pleased with herself. Maybe she thought I was spiraling, pacing around our home, wondering what she was doing, waiting to forgive her when she got back Monday. She'd built that version of me in her head, a quiet, predictable man, too logical to retaliate. Someone who processes betrayal like a software update, runs a diagnostic, then moves on, except logic has its sharp edges. The photo came in Saturday at 6:08 p.m., her toes half buried in the sand, that overpriced wine in hand, stem tilted just enough to show off her fresh manicure, sunset filtering through the window behind her. And in that reflection, clear as anything, Derek shirtless, grinning, holding a second glass. She didn't caption it. She didn't have to. The message was obvious. I did it. I went. What are you going to do about it? I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because the wine she was smugly sipping, I'd had it delivered. She'd completely forgotten that I managed the liquor vendor's corporate account, handled bulk orders for company retreats and client mixers. I'd added a case of her favorite to our last shipment and tagged it with instructions for surprise beach delivery, use guest name at gate. She thought she was clever for finding it already stocked in the cabinet, thought fate was smiling on her affair. She didn't realize that fate had been scheduled 2 days prior by her very methodical husband. At 6:42 p.m. sharp, right as Sarah was plating some smug little charcuterie board she'd arranged to look effortless, but had already posted twice to her story, gravel crunched in the driveway. She assumed it was a delivery. Maybe the fresh towels she'd requested via the app, maybe more wine magically appearing. She was already half a bottle in. Derek was still out back, shirt unbuttoned like he thought he was auditioning for a resort catalog. But when she opened that door, it wasn't a delivery driver standing there. It was a woman, maybe mid-40s, in a pressed navy blouse and jeans too clean for a road trip. Beside her, 2 kids, one with a backpack slung low, the other holding a folded towel like he'd been told to behave or else. Behind them, an older couple stood quietly, hands clasped together like they were attending a polite funeral. "Hi," the woman said, voice calm, composed, but a little too rehearsed. "Is this the Winston property?" Sarah blinked hard. "No, I mean, this is my house." The woman smiled sadly. "Ah." She glanced at the kids. Well, not for much longer, I suppose. Before Sarah could fire off whatever half-formed defense she had brewing, Derek strolled in through the sliding doors behind her, wiping his hands with a dish towel. He was clearly expecting a package or maybe a neighbor dropping by. He froze dead in his tracks. The color drained out of his face so fast it looked like someone had unplugged him from a power source. "That's," he croaked. "That's my wife." The silence that followed could have flattened a wave. The kids didn't move. The older couple didn't even blink. Jennifer, Derek's wife, just raised her eyebrows slightly. Not high, not theatrical, just enough to say, "Really?" She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "I assume we'll be staying in the guest cottage?" she asked, then turned her head slightly toward the back patio. "Is the grill on already?" Derek stammered something completely useless. Sarah didn't even look at him. "I wasn't expecting company," she finally managed, eyes darting from face to face like she was searching for someone to lie to. "This isn't really ready for guests." "Oh, don't worry," Jennifer said smoothly. "We're not picky." The older couple nodded in perfect unison. The man offered quietly, "We brought linens." Then came another sound, another car engine humming low down the road. Sarah stepped out onto the porch, heart definitely racing now. A black sedan pulled in behind the SUV. The driver's door opened. It was me, wearing a clean polo shirt, calm as sunrise, a duffel bag slung over my shoulder. I waved at the kids as I passed them. Sarah didn't say my name, couldn't. Her throat locked up completely. I stepped inside and looked around like I was inspecting a rental property for the first time. "Evening," I said to the room, then glanced at Sarah. Didn't realize we'd have such a big crowd. Jennifer gave me a small nod. "Thank you again for inviting us." I turned back to Sarah, my own wife. "Hope you don't mind. I figured since everyone was already heading this way, it'd be rude not to coordinate everything." Sarah opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. The kids sat on the edge of the couch without being told. Derek's parents walked straight to the kitchen like they remembered the layout from previous visits. I placed my bag neatly in the hallway and returned to the living room. Then the worst part for Sarah. I sat right down in the chair by the fireplace, the one she always called her reading nook, and just looked at her. Not angry, not smug, not vindictive. Just there, present, observing. And suddenly it wasn't her house anymore. It was a stage, and every seat had filled before the curtains went up. Sarah yanked Derek by the wrist the second she found a sliver of privacy, dragging him past the wine rack and into the narrow hallway leading to the laundry room. Her voice barely broke above a whisper, but every syllable was pure acid. "What the hell is happening, Derek? You told me they weren't suspicious. You swore to me your wife didn't know, didn't even suspect anything." "I didn't," Derek whispered back frantically, eyes darting over her shoulder like a kid who broke a vase and was hoping the sound didn't reach the next room. "Jesus, I didn't know they were coming, I swear. I haven't spoken to my parents in weeks." "That's comforting," she hissed. "And what, they just happened to show up? All of them? The same weekend you bring me here?" Before he could finish forming an excuse, my voice drifted in from the patio. Low, calm, deliberate. "Dinner's at 7. I stood outside the sliding glass doors holding a tray of uncooked salmon, seasoned and wrapped neatly in foil. I wasn't looking at Sarah. I was adjusting the grill temperature. "I figured we'd all eat together," I said casually, "since this is about family." Then I walked back toward the deck like nothing was wrong, like this was some warm reunion and not a social autopsy with the corpse still twitching on the table. Sarah stood frozen in that hallway, Derek beside her, visibly wilting. Neither of them said another word. They both knew what came next. Dinner. Not a word either of them had planned, not an event they'd intended, not a moment they were remotely prepared for. But now it was happening, and there was no way to escape without making everything obvious. They walked out together, barely. Sarah felt like her legs were moving under someone else's command. Her stomach churned as the smells of grilled fish and toasted bread reached her. The table had been set perfectly. Plates out, wine glasses filled, everything positioned just so. I'd even lit the candles, the ones she saved for special evenings. Jennifer was already seated, one kid beside her, the other across the table. Derek's parents were mid-conversation with me about how lovely the drive down had been, what beautiful weather we were having. Everyone smiled too politely, like they were all at a wake for a relative nobody actually liked. Sarah sat. There was no other option. To leave now would mean one thing: guilt, the kind that screams. If they bailed on dinner, they'd have to explain why. Why her face had gone pale when that SUV pulled up. Why Derek couldn't look his wife in the eye. Why I, her supposedly oblivious husband, looked like the only person not pretending. So she sat, and Derek sat beside her, across from his own wife, across from his kids who didn't say a word, but kept staring at the two of them like a slow-burn horror movie. The first course was salad, arugula, candied pecans, balsamic vinaigrette. Sarah's own recipe, actually. I served it with surgical precision, like a maitre d' at a 5-star restaurant he never wanted to eat at again. No one spoke at first. The clink of forks and knives was absolutely deafening. Then Derek's mom broke the silence with a question so direct it stopped time. "So, how long have you two been involved?" The fork in Sarah's hand paused midair. Jennifer didn't flinch, just kept chewing methodically. Derek coughed, nearly choking. "Excuse me?" His dad actually chuckled. "Son, your mother asked you a question." The table fell silent again. Even the kids stopped eating. From the far end, I topped off the wine glasses like it was just another pleasant evening. Sarah glanced at me desperately. I was smiling faintly, politely, a distant smile, the kind you give strangers who stand too close in elevators. The worst part? Nobody left. Because to leave would be to admit everything. The texts, the weekends, the excuses, the beach playlist labeled as work planning, all of it. Instead, they ate together like one big broken family attempting normalcy. The grilled salmon flaked perfectly, medium rare, skin crisp and golden. The kind of meal people photograph and post with hashtags like blessed in coastal life. Jennifer complimented the seasoning. "Lemon and dill?" she asked casually, wiping the corners of her mouth with the cloth napkin I'd ironed that morning. "Very fresh?" Sarah didn't respond. Couldn't. Her throat was too tight. She just nodded stiffly, trying to chew without choking. The wine sat heavy in her stomach like regret. I poured another round, not hurried, not slow, mechanical, steady, controlled. Then came the question, spoken so softly by Jennifer it almost sounded like she was asking about the weather. How long has this been going on? The sound of a fork meeting china echoed. Derek dropped his gaze to his plate, pretending to inspect the parsley garnish with intense focus. Silence hung thick in the air. The kids froze mid-bite. Across from Sarah, Jennifer kept her tone perfectly level. I'm not angry, just curious. Derek finally looked up. It's not what it looks like. That was absolutely the wrong answer. Derek's mother tilted her head thoughtfully. Oh, so it's not an affair then? He swallowed hard. It's complicated. His mother turned her attention to Sarah. Was this the first time, dear? Sarah nearly dropped her glass. I don't think this is... We're not judging, the older woman said gently, almost kindly. We've all made mistakes, but I'm asking because the first time is often the most honest. Before the cover-up stories start piling up, the entire dynamic shifted from judgment to clinical autopsy. Sarah tried to breathe normally. The room felt narrower somehow, the lights too warm, the air too thick. Derek tried to deflect attention. We didn't plan this. I cleared my throat slightly, not to speak, but as if to remind everyone at the table that I was still there, still listening, still absorbing every word. Jennifer leaned back in her chair, swirling her wine thoughtfully. I found a receipt in your wallet from February. 2 rooms, Palm Springs Resort. You told me that was for a conference. Derek blinked rapidly. It was. I mean, I had to extend my stay. There was bad weather grounding flights. Her voice didn't rise even slightly. You called me from the hallway that night. I remember the echo clearly. You'd never used speakerphone before that trip, but you did that night. The kids kept their eyes locked on their plates, like this was just grown-up conversation they were supposed to ignore. But they weren't too young to understand. Kids always know when the truth has been peeled open and exposed. I still hadn't said much since dinner started. Just ate occasionally, glanced at my watch, topped off glasses like a perfect host fulfilling his duties. And every single time Sarah looked at me, I was already looking back at her. Not with anger, not with sorrow, not with betrayal, with stillness. The kind of stillness that makes a person reconsider every decision that led them to this exact moment. How long? Jennifer asked again, her eyes not leaving Sarah's face. Sarah couldn't answer, couldn't even open her mouth. Derek tried to respond. It's not like we kept track of dates or anything. So it wasn't the first time, his mother stated simply. He looked desperately at his father for help, for backup, for anything. The old man just kept chewing in silence, disappointed, but not surprised. Derek's mother picked up her napkin and placed it gently on her lap with deliberate care. I suppose what hurts the most, she said thoughtfully, is the coordination involved. The effort it takes to deceive this many people requires real work, real planning. She looked directly across the table at Sarah. Did it feel worth it at any point? The excitement? The secrecy? Sarah opened her mouth, but no sound came out whatsoever, and across from her I finally set down my fork with precision. Still no words from me. Just the smallest raise of one eyebrow, a tiny gesture that said everything. The room didn't need shouting, didn't need threats or accusations, because every single person at that table had become a mirror. And Sarah's reflection wasn't human anymore. It was statistics, patterns, receipts, calendar events, wine labels, hotel echoes. It was an audit happening in real time, and she was the discrepancy that didn't balance. After dinner concluded in painful silence, the hallway smelled like lemon wood polish, and the linen spray Sarah always insisted on for creating a calm environment. She had half a glass of wine left in her hand, and the stem clinked softly as she turned the corner, bare feet brushing the rug she'd bought on a self-care weekend in Santa Barbara years ago. She reached for the master bedroom door like pure muscle memory, like this place was still hers, still home, still safe. But the knob didn't turn, locked. She blinked hard, confused, tried again with more force. Nothing. Then she saw it clearly. A piece of printer paper taped cleanly to the door, centered perfectly, no handwriting, just plain 14-point font. Guests in this room. Please use the guest cottage. At first, she laughed, soft and stunned, like someone misreading a joke they don't understand. Then she reached up to peel the paper off, fingers trembling slightly. It didn't budge. Scotch tape on all 4 corners, sealed tight and deliberate. She knocked once, then twice, no answer. Of course not. She wasn't even sure who was behind the door anymore, and she wasn't ready to find out. The hallway behind her creaked. She turned quickly, wine sloshing slightly in the glass. Derek stood there, arms folded across his chest, shirtless, barefoot, looking pathetic and lost. "She locked it?" he asked quietly, trying to keep his voice down. Sarah stared at him for a long moment. She repeated slowly. Derek, he locked it. And it's not locked for her. It's locked against us. He looked like he might actually cry. "Where should I—" "The couch," Sarah cut him off. "You're on the couch, Derek." She turned and walked away before he could say anything else. The guest room was smaller than Sarah remembered, more cramped than it had any right to be. Same bed, same mismatched nightstands she'd always said they'd replace and never did. The overhead fan wobbled slightly, making the light buzz faintly. The air smelled stale, musty, like she wasn't supposed to be there. There was no toothbrush laid out, no slippers waiting, no robe hanging on the door. She didn't bother changing out of her clothes, just lay on the bed stiff in her sundress, eyes open wide in the dark, ears straining to hear anything through the thin wall. And eventually she did hear something. The soft creak of springs, Derek settling onto the living room couch. Then his whisper came through the wall, muffled but clear. "I'm sorry," he murmured desperately. "I didn't know it'd be like this." Sarah didn't respond, because she did know. She'd always known this would go somewhere dark and terrible. She just thought she'd get there on her own terms, with some control left. Instead, she was exiled in her own house, sleeping in a room she hadn't set foot in for years, while I, her quiet, unassuming, Excel spreadsheet-loving husband, remained calm and in control, hosting and delegating rooms like a concierge at some boutique hotel. And somehow, despite everything that had happened, I was the one in the master suite. The door didn't need a deadbolt. The sign had already said everything that needed saying. Guests in this room. Not cheaters, not liars, not betrayers. Guests. Sarah blinked at the ceiling in the darkness, barely breathing. Outside, the ocean pounded against the shore in steady rhythm. In here, not even Derek's apologies through the wall could soften the crushing silence. She finally closed her eyes and felt the house she once owned reject her one floorboard at a time. The fire crackled steadily later that evening, spitting tiny sparks into the humid night air. A lazy breeze came in off the water, carrying salt and smoke and something sour beneath it all. Resentment, maybe. Regret. The logs were perfectly arranged. I'd done it myself earlier, as if kindling was somehow therapeutic, as if setting a flame under a circle of liars wasn't symbolic enough already. Everyone had found a seat without being asked. Derek sat stiffly on a wicker chair he'd once claimed was too soft for his back. His father leaned against the deck rail, sipping tea slowly. The kids were upstairs, finally asleep, or at least pretending to be. The rest of us were exactly where I wanted everyone. Positioned, present, deeply uncomfortable. Sarah sat curled in an Adirondack chair, wrapped in a blanket she didn't remember packing, legs drawn up, a second glass of wine in her hand. She hadn't touched her dinner. No one had asked why. It was Jennifer who broke the heavy silence. She spoke into her glass, not quite facing anyone directly. Every Sunday at 10:02 p.m., for almost a year. No one moved. No one breathed. "He always said it was work," she continued flatly. "Client in Chicago, urgent revisions, something about time zones and deadlines." She smiled, but not kindly, not even bitterly, just empty. I believed him. I wanted to. He'd be typing frantically, pacing, earbuds in, looking real stressed and important. She looked across the crackling fire directly at Derek, who stared at the flames like they owed him an explanation or escape. "You remember that, Derek?" she asked calmly. "The calls you took with the balcony door cracked open, pretending the wind was too loud?" Derek said absolutely nothing. The flames hissed and popped. Then I spoke, my voice soft, but carrying clearly. "That's when she always showered. Every Sunday. 10:02. Sarah's breath caught hard in her throat. She didn't know why I chose that exact moment to speak. Maybe I'd been waiting, measuring, letting the fire burn just hot enough before adding more fuel. I didn't look at her when I said it, didn't say her name, didn't point or accuse, just stated it like a timestamp, like raw data from a spreadsheet. Derek turned to Sarah with panic in his eyes. That's just a coincidence?" I looked up from the fire finally. "Is it?" Sarah stared back at me. Her husband, the man she once called boring because I never liked surprises, never forgot a calendar reminder, never missed paying a utility bill on time. I wasn't angry in that moment. I wasn't even hurt anymore. I was simply observing, documenting, understanding. She realized for the first time that she hadn't just underestimated me. She had never really known me at all. Jennifer leaned forward slightly, firelight dancing across her face. I used to wonder why he'd get a little giddy on Sunday nights, like he was looking forward to something special, something exciting. You remember that little hum you used to do, Derek? Like you were proud of yourself? Derek's father chuckled dryly from his position at the rail. That hum? Yeah, he used to do that exact same hum before sneaking into the liquor cabinet as a teenager, too. No one laughed. No one needed to, because no one was denying anything anymore. The cold air off the water cut through Sarah's blanket easily. The fire's warmth didn't reach her at all. I tossed a dry twig into the flames casually. It sparked dramatically like a match against bone-dry wood. I guess we all have patterns, I said quietly. Some people build them intentionally. Some people hide inside them desperately. Another silence fell, but this one didn't stretch uncomfortably. It settled like dust. And this time no one asked any more questions because they already had all the answers they needed. They'd just been comparing notes quietly, carefully, methodically. And now every alibi, every excuse, every "you're just being paranoid" melted away completely under the weight of two people who thought they could navigate lies in the dark. But here, under the fire's revealing glow, there was nowhere left to hide at all. Morning came with the sound of zippers being pulled. Not alarms, not conversation, just the steady, practiced rustle of packing, polyester against cotton, the soft thump of shoes being wrapped carefully in newspaper. Sarah didn't even need to open the guest room door to know what was happening. They were leaving. Derek's parents had the practiced discipline of people who never needed to explain themselves to anyone. They moved through the hallway like ghosts, bypassing the kitchen entirely, skipping breakfast, not even bothering with coffee. The house felt suddenly smaller, like their departure was sucking all the air out of every room. Sarah peeked through the crack in the spare room door. They didn't see her, or maybe they did, and simply chose not to acknowledge her existence. Derek's father wheeled a modest black suitcase down the hallway with purpose. His mother carried a floral tote bag filled with board games and crossword puzzles she'd brought but never touched. No goodbyes, no speeches, not even a parting glance at Derek, who stood by the window pretending to check the weather forecast. They didn't say his name. They didn't say hers. The front door closed behind them with a quiet, final click. And just like that, they were gone. An hour later, Sarah heard the garage door opening. Jennifer moved deliberately, each item packed with visible care and precision. No chaos, no tears, no dramatic displays. The kids loaded themselves into the back seat without being told. One carried a stuffed animal tucked under one arm. The other had headphones on already and a faraway look in his eyes that didn't belong on a child that young. Jennifer walked them to the car, arms crossed tightly against the morning chill, but Sarah didn't dare speak or approach. Derek stood beside her on the porch, helpless, desperately trying to force some significance into a goodbye that simply wouldn't come. "Jen, can we?" he started, reaching out toward her. She stepped back, not dramatically, not harshly, just enough. The kind of retreat that says clearly, "We've already tried everything." She finished securing the second seatbelt, closed the door with care, then circled around to the driver's side. She didn't look at Derek at all. Instead, she looked directly at me. I was standing out on the front step holding a mug of black coffee, watching quietly. Jennifer met my eyes. "Thank you," she said simply, "for letting them see the truth." I nodded once, not in approval, just in acknowledgement. Then she got into the SUV and drove off. The sound of tires crunching gravel faded gradually into the sea wind. Inside the house, the silence thickened into something almost tangible. Derek hadn't moved from his spot. Sarah could see the faint tremble in his jaw, the nervous twitch in his fingers, like he wanted to punch a wall but knew better than to leave a mark on someone else's property. "I didn't think she'd actually," he started weakly. "No one cares what you thought," Sarah cut him off sharply. He looked at her with wide eyes, a flicker of betrayal crossing his face. But Sarah wasn't playing his game anymore. She wasn't playing anyone's game, because in that moment it hit her with full force. This wasn't just about Derek or me or even the affair itself. It was about witnesses. She hadn't just betrayed a marriage in private. She had tried to rewrite the entire story in secret, and someone else had read it out loud to everyone who mattered. And now the characters were walking off stage one by one, leaving her behind. Derek had lost his family completely. But Sarah's loss, it was quieter, slower, more surgical and precise. She watched me step back inside the house, closing the front door behind me like I was sealing a tomb. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Sarah was still standing there on that porch, and she was already gone. That night, Sarah found me sitting on the deck after the sun had vanished. The fire pit was cold. The grill was spotless. The chairs were all in place. I held a glass of water. No wine, no music, no distractions. She'd spent hours rehearsing what to say, between unloading the dishwasher, folding some stranger's towel she'd found on the railing, and staring at the open guest book on the counter with all our names written inside. She'd tested a dozen first lines. None worked. When she finally stepped out onto the porch, all she managed was, it wasn't supposed to be real. I didn't look up right away, just nodded once. I thought you'd get mad, maybe yell, maybe leave for a few days, then come back and we'd fix it. I turned my head to meet her eyes. You were right about one thing. I used to chase you. Her knees almost buckled, but she didn't sit down. That chair across from me wasn't hers anymore. Not tonight. Not ever again. Can we fix this? She whispered. I leaned forward and set the glass on the railing. The soft sound of glass against wood was louder than any argument in our 19 years together. You went to the house, I said evenly. So it's yours. She blinked. What? I signed the transfer, filed it the morning you left with Derek. The deed's in your name now. The house, the land, utilities covered for 6 months. You won't feel a thing financially. It's all clean, all legal, all yours. She shook her head, confused. You're giving it to me? I'm giving it back, I said quietly. You made your choice. I made mine. She moved closer. So you're leaving? I looked at her fully then, calm, unshaken, final. No, I said. You are. She stared at me, stunned. What? I'm staying with silence, with peace. She laughed a sharp, nervous laugh. You can't throw me out. This is my house. I raised an eyebrow. Is it? She stepped forward, desperate. You can't be serious. You'll be alone here in all these memories. I smiled, not cruelly, just like someone who already knows the ending. I won't be alone. Not for long. Her stomach dropped. You're seeing someone? No. Then what? I see clearly now, I said. That's enough. She stood barefoot in the wind, heart pounding. For years, she'd thought I was predictable. Easy to forgive, easy to keep. She never imagined I'd stop chasing her without moving an inch. You're really staying? She asked, shaky. I looked out at the water. The tide was gone. This was supposed to be our safe place, I said softly. But you made it your secret. You wanted it. So keep it. Paint the walls, put your name on the box. Live here if you want. Just don't ask me to carry what you broke. Her hands trembled. I stood up, picked up the glass, and walked past her. No scene, no slam. Just a man done chasing ghosts. She turned, but the screen door clicked shut behind me. I didn't lock it. I didn't need to. She already knew she wasn't inside anymore. The next morning, she saw us from the upstairs window, me and a man in a tan blazer holding a clipboard. The for sale sign was still tucked under his arm, but she knew what it meant before he planted it in the sand. She ran outside barefoot, hair still wet, panic in her throat. The wind was sharp for fall, her jeans soaked in the surf. I stood with my back to her, talking calmly with the realtor. Open house this weekend, he said. It'll go quick. Wait, she shouted. You said I could have it. I turned slowly, not surprised at all. I did, I said softly. And you showed me what that meant. The words weren't cruel, just final. She wanted to yell, to fight, but there was no audience anymore. No family, no lover, just a realtor scheduling showings. She looked at the house like it might turn back time. I walked up the steps, hands in my pockets. Please, she whispered. Don't. I didn't answer. The door closed behind me with a soft click. Her suitcase waited on the porch, packed, zipped. I'd done it while she was in the shower. She opened it with shaking hands, her clothes, chargers, toothbrush, a sweater she'd taken from me years ago. She clutched it, but it didn't anchor her. Nothing did. She looked at the house one last time. It was dark and quiet, not out of anger, out of closure. She sat as the sun went down. The windows turned to mirrors. All she saw was herself, alone. No tears came. Tears would mean there was still something left to save. She grabbed the suitcase and walked away. The house sold in 4 days, 10% over asking. I bought a small place farther up the coast. No memories. A clean start. Sarah called a few times that first week. Then she stopped. I heard she was staying with her sister. Derek and Jennifer are divorcing. Some people called me heartless for setting up the beach house confrontation. Maybe they're right. But after months of her lies, I figured she should see the truth played out where everyone could see it. She wanted to rewrite the story in private. I just made sure it got read out loud.